The next step of the process is actually the braining process, where you're putting actually the brains onto the rawhide. So that's what you really got now, is a piece of rawhide that's been scraped, the hair and grain off and the membrane off. So in order to get set up for the braining process, what I got here is I got a pot here that had boiling water in it. Well, it's just kind of starting. I had pretty hot water, let's put it that way. And I'm going to take some brains. Now the brains, you can use the brains of the actual animal. There's enough brains. Every animal has enough brains to tan its own hide. But since I don't necessarily keep the deer brains, I purchase pork brains. Any brains would work, cow brains, whatever, but you could buy pork brains in 1 pound cans. But I've been finding out it's getting harder and harder to find brains just in stores or in the butcher shops, because not that many people eat it anymore. So I usually buy 1 pound brains for every deer hide that I'm going to do. So make sure that you get your brains purchased ahead of time and you have them ready for you, because last place I went to look, they said they can get it, but it would take several weeks. So the next step, like, you take the raw brains and smear it onto the hide itself. But what I do is I take the brains and put a little bit of water here and liquefy it, and then I'll put it into this, I'll go ahead and dump it into this pot of water, and it'll actually, the heat of the water and will actually somewhat cook the brains a little bit and loosen the oils and stuff that's in there. So I'll go ahead and get that in there. Now the thing about it, don't put the hide in really hot water, because you don't want to cook the hide. You want to let this steep for a little bit, and then, you know, when you can stick your hand in it for a little bit of time, you know it's not going to be cooked, then you go ahead and put the hide into that solution. And the thing about, another reason why I cook it is I like to let it sit in there overnight, because it just gives a little bit more time to pick up the oils and stuff. So if I put in the raw brains in there, it kind of tends to get kind of rancid smelling if I leave it overnight. So cooking in it this way, you know, helps with that. Alright, it's cooled off enough where I can put the rawhide in there and start soaking into the brain solution. So all I do is pretty well just roll it up in there and just kind of push it in there and let it soak into it. And work it through, work it down in there. Let it soak for a while. Like I said, I'll get it in there real good, and then I'll let it set overnight. Now that the hide's been soaking overnight, I'll go ahead and get it out of the solution, brain solution, and then we're kind of wring a little bit, as much water out of it as we can. And then I'm going to show you how we're going to wring it. Alright, we got as much water out of there as we can by hand. Basically all you're going to do is, I usually, some type of pole or fence post or post, nice round post works pretty good. I'll put it over there, and I'm going to turn it, kind of put it in itself and make like a loop, and then I'm going to get some kind of stick or a handle, broom handle or a mop handle, stick it in there and basically twist. Keep twisting until you can wring out as much water as you possibly can out of there. Let that drip out for a little bit. You see I just wrapped it around there, put the ends together, and then spun my stick in there. You do that several times, and then you'll be able to, like I said, start drying it. As when you dry it, all you're doing is stretching it as it dries. And you'll be able to feel, you know, it's just always fun. Probably the funnest part about all this is taking a wet, slimy skin and as it dries and turn it into something real nice and soft, like a big chamois cloth. And all you're doing is stretching it. Keep stretching it. You can stretch it down over a fence post. You can put a rope or something out and pull against it. You know, anything to help stretch the hide. Just keep stretching it. Keep working it. Keep stretching it. Now, one of the things that you're also going to have to do at this point is these holes that are in here. What I do is I get a awl and, you know, Glover's needles or some heavy-duty needles, and then stitch it up with whatever kind of thread that you're going to stitch your garments up with, or you make a buckskin outfit, which could be artificial sinew or the real sinew. And if you've seen some other videos on utilizing sinew, you know that you can take that and make thread, and that's what a lot of the Native Americans and early Americans used for thread. So all I do is kind of lay the hole together and then stitch it closed. Let me show you another thing that I use to break the hides with, or actually to stretch the hides with. Here's something else that I use to stretch the hides over, works real well. It's basically a half of a disc blade welded on a piece of pipe, and that pipe fits down over a T-post. So, like I said, I just kind of stretch it and rub it. A lot of times I just use a old fence post to stretch it on. I've done a lot of times where, like I said, with a piece of rope and pulling against it. As long as you get your stretch as it dries, you're stretching it as it dries. And you want to pick a nice, good day that's going to be a lot of drying. It's going to take a long time on a cold, dreary day like today. So, like I said, just keep stretching it as it's drying. And make sure that when you're done, that it doesn't feel cold and damp. You want to be completely dried through it before you do the smoking of it. Now, let's say you working on it and you can't quite keep with it and it's not drying in time. What you could do is, and a lot of times I do this, is I'll roll it nice and tight up, and I'll put it in a sealed plastic bag and stick it in the refrigerator so that the next day or the next evening I can work on it some more. And then I'll just keep doing that till it's completely dry. And then when it's completely dry, that's when I'll stitch it up and we'll do the smoking process. Here is a deer hide that's in the smoking process. I had smoked one side of it, and I'm actually finishing up with the second side of it. And what I do is, if you see, I kind of got it sewed up into a little, like a tube or a sock, and then I took a coat hanger on the inside to kind of spread it out a little bit and got it suspended up. And then I got a little piece of a cloth around the bottom of it to kind of help chimney up the smoke so that the hide ain't directly onto this pipe. Now, I actually got a pipe. I got a small grill, and I got a few pieces of charcoal in there, and some like rotted, probably poplar works pretty good. It gives a nice yellow coat to it. And so I got some charcoal in there with the rotted wood on there making the smoke. And I got a piece of pipe here, like I said, that over the top of the lid to help channel the smoke up to it. And you can actually see it's smoking pretty good. The thing of it is you want like a warm smoke, but not a hot smoke. When you look, I can kind of feel the smoke. There's a couple holes in here that I haven't sewed up that I can feel in there and see that, it's a nice warm, it's not too hot, but the smoke is actually going up through there and that's smoking it on both sides. So once all that, you get it to a certain color that you like, and then you flip it in out and do the other side. So like I said, I got it suspended up. You can make any kind of frame, a tree limb or something like this. I kind of got it over the porch of the barn here a little bit where it's kind of blocked from a little bit of wind, so I can control it a lot better. So like I said, you can see it's smoking pretty good. We'll get this hide smoked up and I'll show you what the next step is. Now after the hide's been smoked, what I'll do is I'll open it back up again, and you can see it's, for one thing, it's a little bit hard to cut a pattern off of something like this. So what I'll do is, the next step after I smoked it, is I'll take the material and stick it in maybe a bucket of warm water, and then let it soak for a little while in there. And that way, like I said, you can smoke and equalize through it, the tar and stuff. And then what I'll do is, I'll wring it out, and then I'll stretch it out in the barn and let it dry. So here's what you end up with, after you've taken it out and wring it out and let it dry and tack it up, stretch it out. I nail it up to the back of the barn and let it dry. And here I got a nice piece of buckskin now where I can cut a nice pattern off to make my buckskin outfit or whatever I want to do with it. So I hope you guys learned a little bit about brain tan buckskin. Catch you out in the woods.